Welcome everybody back to Friar Talk. Today we are going to be talking about the universal DH as it was just implemented, or at least Rob Manfred said the league is going to be adopting a universal DH. But then after we talk about the DH a little bit, we're going to talk about the Padres DH position specifically. And the main focus is going to be if Eric Hosmer is a member of the Padres, is he going to be the DH? So Chase, you can start us off. How do you feel about the universal DH, just league wide?
It's perfect. I mean, we saw our pitchers with the bat. The greatest thing to come out of it was Slam Arena, but outside of that, it was like brutal. Anytime there's runners in scoring position and you had the pitcher come up, it was just like, okay, they're either going to watch three pitches down the middle, swing and look like they've never swung a bat their entire lives, or they're going to ground out and they're just going to walk back to the dugout instead of running to the actual bag. Because, when a pitchers do hit the ball and it goes in the infield, you see them, they're just doing their little, okay, I'm out. And they just go back in. So I think the universal DH is a great thing. I mean, yeah, you're going to miss sometimes where you're going to get those moments where a pitcher does hit a home run, but it's few and far between. So I think it's great for the Padres, outside of the fact that, like you were mentioning, and in the title, is Eric Hosmer going to be the DH? Can he fulfill that role? And if not, who is it going to be? And so far, all the answers point to Eric Hosmer being DH. I mean, anytime you can get him off the field, off of first base. There was a video circulating today. I know I sent it through the group chat. It kind of circulates every few months on Padres Twitter of all the errors that Eric Hosmer has made, and it's just like a 3-minute clip, and it's glorious. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it, and it will change your opinion on Hosmer's fielding. And is it legitimately 4 Gold Gloves that he won? Because I don't know how he got those. But if you can get that glove off the field and replace it probably with Cronenworth, and then you put Ha-seong Kim at second, you have Gold Glove defense all around the diamond. Though, you're like, okay, Ha-seong Kim at bat. Yeah, you'll see some ups and downs. We saw that last season. Now, if you don't put Eric Hosmer there, and that's not even guaranteeing that Eric Hosmer changes his launch angles and doesn't ground into a million double plays, because that's also in the video. Who else are you going to put there? You can probably put Myers there because he's one of the veterans, and he doesn't really play a great right field, but then you have 2 outfield spots to obtain. So Eric Hosmer seems the most likely candidate. I don't like it. I just want Eric Hosmer off the team. But next best thing is just getting his glove off the field, and the Padres will benefit from that.
Yeah, so basically, we saw an article earlier that said more likely than not, Eric Hosmer will probably be at least in the Padres starting lineup, if not the Padres first baseman to start the season. And that's quite unfortunate considering how awful he's been for the Padres. And, going back to the question about the universal DH, I absolutely love it. I think, the general population of baseball fans will love the idea because, I mean, guys, who do you think was our best hitter last year as far as pitchers go? I'll probably go with Yu Darvish. I think Brian Weathers is the only one to hit a bomb, but as far as the rest,
Whoa, wait. The only one to hit a bomb, Isaac.
sorry. Daniel Camarena also. Props to Camarena. But yeah, Yu Darvish is probably our best hitter as far as pitchers go. But I mean, how confident did we feel in that 160 batting average going up and getting a hit when we needed it most? Exactly. With that being said, there were also times at the season where us Padre fans had to see the pitcher go up to the 5th spot, and you'd see Manny and Jake get intentionally walked to get the bases loaded, and then a pitcher would come up and we're screwed. We saw that against the Dodgers. So, with the Padres having quite possibly the worst hitting pitchers in baseball, I don't know if anyone can back up that stat or not, but sure felt like it. It's very beneficial for us to get the universal DH, as well as for many other teams, as well as for the sport of baseball. We're going to start seeing a lot more runs being put on because, pitchers aren't costing their team runs at the plate. So really, really solid thing to see. Now, as far as Eric Hosmer goes, unfortunately, you might go from having the worst first baseman in the league to quite possibly one of the worst DHs in the league. It's a sad reality of it because, I mean, when you hit 15 home runs, you're not a good DH. You're barely a bottom of the lineup hitter if you're hitting 15 home runs in this league. But and if you're like 6'3", 200 and playing for $20 million, kind of sucks, man. But it's not like you can really DFA him unless you do some sort of, you spread out the contract for, for, if everyone knows it, Bobby Bonilla Day gets like $1 million for like 35 years, something like that. But I don't think that's very realistic. So unfortunately, we probably will see Eric Hosmer on the field at times. We'll probably see him at DH most of the time. And I don't know who will fill that first base role. Chase brought up, Jay Cronenworth, and that's quite possibly the best in-house option. A great athlete, a great first baseman. I love his glove at second, but if you're replacing him with Ha-seong Kim at second, or even CJ Abrams, then it's not exactly that much of a downgrade defensively. We'll see how that works offensively though. But getting one weak link off the field is probably the best way to go as far as this goes, and we'll see how it plays out, because it really doesn't feel like Eric Hosmer will be off this team.
Yeah, I mean, I think for when we look at the DH, I think it's a really good thing. And of course, Daniel Camarena gets brought up as like a reason, this is such an amazing moment. Why would you want to get rid of those moments? The problem is that happens like 1 out of 1,000 times. And more likely than not, what you're going to get when your pitcher comes to the plate is he's going to go down to bunt the ball, and he's going to like break his finger or do something like that and then miss a month. Like we've seen that happen multiple times with guys. We've also seen that pitchers and players as well really, really are in favor of the DH. And you talk about how you can kind of save a lot of these guys' careers when they get a lot older. The DH is a great way to do that. And I saw someone quote tweeted a tweet that I put out today about the DH and said like, oh no, it's like a horrible thing. Like, I don't want to watch an old player go hit. Do you want to watch an old player go field? That doesn't make any sense. Like, if they're under contract and they're in the league, an easy way to get production out of them is to move them to a DH spot or to not have them in the field as much. One, it prevents injuries. And also, like, if you have older players, like, it's the best thing to do. That's what, I mean, Eric Hosmer's not that old, but in terms of being past his prime, he's well past his prime at this point. So you look at like guys like that and you go, like, that's what we're having the discussion of. Is he going to be a DH? Because, okay, he's proven that he's not valuable in the field. It's a way to get something out of guys that can't do it on the field. Either, you lose your athleticism, whatever it is. But it's a way to get production, and having them only hitting is a lot better than having them fielding. So I do think it's a very positive thing. Now, my roommate, he's in the other room. He's pro DH. And we have the conversations about it all the time. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, if you're not pro universal DH, it's so stupid. I don't think it is. I get the argument. I get how it's like a strategy thing of, you're the double switch is gone pretty much. And it's like, okay, do we pull the starter? He's been in 5, he's been in 6, he's at 80 pitches. Like, it's a lot of strategy. And I get that side of the game that you are losing. But overall, I think it's a lot better for the health. And I do think it's a lot better for entertainment, especially for like casual fans as well, because no one that doesn't really follow baseball super hardcore is going to enjoy watching Dinelson Lamet come up and attempt to get any contact on the baseball for however many at-bats he has throughout the season. But like, there's a lot of guys where it's like, okay, dude, like, we don't need to go see this guy come up there and hit. So I do like the idea of having a DH. Moving to Hosmer. Now, the big question is, are they going to be able to move on from Hosmer? And we've talked about that extensively with this show. But if he is the DH, I think, yes, it's a plus because you don't have him fielding. But in comparison to other DHs, it almost feels like it might be hurting the Padres if he's the DH. Like, bringing the DH to the NL and then having Eric Hosmer as your DH probably puts you in a worse spot than not having a DH. That's my thought. Because if you look at him, and the guy that I think we always bring up is Nelson Cruz, because that's been Preller's guy for so long. He loves Nelson Cruz. He's offered him, I guess, a bunch of years, right? Like, in the past. And that's with a position player. So if you don't go get Nelson Cruz, well, let's look at the difference in their slugging. It's about 200 points if you look at the last 4 years. Eric Hosmer has had 2 seasons in a San Diego Padres uniform with a slugging percentage under 400. That is abysmal when you're talking about DH numbers. So for me, yes, it is a big plus because he's not fielding and he's the worst first baseman fielding wise, or one of the worst. But if you're going to have him as a DH spot, he has to bulk up a lot. He has to generate a lot more power. I think the only attribute where we look at Hosmer and we go, okay, like, it's pretty solid, is his hitting. I say he's an above average contact hitter. He needs to be a much better power hitter if he is going to be a DH. If he's able to do that and they have him under contract, and not this year because he's going to be making $20 million, but he's going to be making $13 million, and let's say he's hitting 25 bombs with the same type of contact hitting that he's had in the past, dude, that's not that bad. Like, that's not a horrible spot to be in. But he has to drastically improve his slugging numbers and his power numbers, because else you're just so far behind it compared to the other DHs around the league. So I think that's a big question there. I don't know how much faith I have in him being able to do that. If he does buy in to, adjusting his swing, and maybe that's something that he's going to do, then yeah, I think you're in a much better spot having him as your DH opposed to having him at first base. But if he doesn't, and he's going to be putting up the same numbers that he has put up in San Diego, I find it very hard to believe that that having the universal DH makes the Padres better at all. But yeah, so anything else you guys want to add before we take off? But that's kind of where I'm at on the whole situation.
I think no matter what, the DH helps the Padres. Even I know Eric Hosmer is a horrible power hitter. He grounds out into many double plays. He's starting to walk a little more. We all know Eric Hosmer is and what Eric Hosmer does. Though there are times when we saw it last year, he started to adjust his swing and he started to hit it more in the air. I don't necessarily care if he can hit 20 home runs, but he can supply gap-to-gap hitting with doubles. I'm okay with that. Sure, the home runs might be better in the long run, but as long as he's getting gap-to-gap doubles and moving runners over, scoring people from gap-to-gap hitting, I'm okay with that. Eric Hosmer doesn't have to go out there and hit 25, 30 home runs. If he does, yeah, that's a great bonus. But what I want from him is for him to stop grounding out to the second baseman or shortstop for a double play. If he can hit it above them for a single or a double and people can score from there, I'm all for that.
Yeah, it's funny because you bring up Eric Hosmer grounding out into double plays. I actually watched a video earlier. It might have been in the video you sent me. I don't really remember. But he hit a ground ball to the second baseman, and the commentator goes, "Oh, sure enough." Like, all right, bro, that's how you know things are getting bad. And it's funny. I saw someone say, what did he say? He said something like, when he saw the report that Eric Hosmer was probably going to be a Padre, he said, something like, ha ha ha, like, these are Eric Hosmer's numbers to begin the season. And I was just thinking, cool, bro. If only it was 2020, because the first 60 games don't matter as much as the last 140. Not 140, sorry, 100. That was stupid. But yeah, man, Eric Hosmer is just, you do quite possibly go from, like I said earlier, the worst first baseman to one of the worst DH, but there is absolutely room for improvement. I think in one of the past videos we brought up how, the Padres have a new hitting coach from San Francisco, from a place that, had a top 10 team in OPS, home runs, all this kind of stuff. So if Eric Hosmer, because it's not just going to rely on the hitting coach, it's going to rely on, is Eric Hosmer finally willing to buy in? And Chase is right. It finally looked like he was starting to buy in last year. But now he needs commitment. Is he going to like playing for the Padres considering what we say about him? Probably not. But, I mean, there's only one way to turn that around, and that's by hitting 20-plus home runs. And you're right, Matt. He's not a horrible, actual hitter. Contact hitter, he's probably batting like 260, 270, and that's not bad. Like, I'll take that. But you need to be able to supply power with that, too. They can't be just a bunch of singles. Power, RBIs from a $20 million man who plays first base is what you expect from a first baseman. The numbers he puts up, I expect from like a second baseman or a center fielder, but not a first baseman. So that's where he needs to improve, getting the ball in the air. Chase, you're absolutely right. Stop hitting the ball to the second baseman. And with that, we could probably see a lot better numbers from Eric Hosmer. My confidence level, not very high, but I mean, all we can do is root for the guy.
Yeah, I feel like we've absolutely ripped Hosmer on this pod, but I do want to point out the reason we rip Hosmer on the pod is because he doesn't buy in. Like, that's been the issue that we've had, is this dude looks extremely lazy playing first base, and all the reports are like, yeah, I'm not willing to change. If he's willing to do that, those are our biggest gripes. Those are the biggest reasons that we get really, really frustrated with him, aside of the production. But like that's the reason why I see so much frustration from us. And if he was to adopt, I think that was great to bring up the San Francisco hitting coach. I can't think of his name. I don't know why. But like that's such a like move where it's like, okay, we're trying to adjust what we're trying to do here. We're trying to hit the ball in the air more. And if that happens, and even Chase brought up, you don't got to hit 30 home runs. You don't have to hit 25 plus. But if you can have that gap to gap power, if he can be a great hitter, then you're going to see a much better team and you're going to see a lot better production. And if he's doing that from the DH spot, I mean, that's not the worst thing in the world. So I could definitely get behind that. But yeah, I think that's all we got today. You have something else to add, Chase?
Yeah, one more thing. Yeah, we also rip this man so much because for some reason, I don't know why, whenever we rip Hosmer on a podcast, he goes off for about a week. And then, we usually give it like another 2 weeks to see what happens. And then we'll rip him again. And then he starts hitting. I don't know what it is. But every time we rip Hosmer apart, this man decides, oh, let me hit let me hit 2 home runs this game. And one of them is going to be clutch in the 8th inning for a go-ahead home run. That happened last year. I don't know why that happens, but anytime we put out a video ripping Hosmer, it happens.
That has been the case. That's pretty funny you bring that up. But yeah, so you guys can pretty much like book it. If we rip Hosmer on like a Tuesday, that Wednesday he's gonna go off. He's probably gonna have 4 hits and a home run. It's pretty ridiculous. And he'll be hot for like 2 weeks after that too. I don't know. It has been like, I don't know if it happened at towards the end of the year last year, but when we were just recording, when we didn't have a YouTube channel, we were just recording on the podcast platform on like Spotify and Apple and stuff. It literally happened like 3 times. It was hilarious. So I do think that's pretty funny. But yeah. All right, guys. I think that's going to do it for today. Happy, though, that Universal DH is a part of the game. Hopefully, the Padres do not have Eric Hosmer to be their Universal DH, but I do think it has the potential to make them better, but just a lot of unknowns right now. I just got to kind of see how he adjusts and if he really buys into adjusting his swing and trying to not ground out, because that is probably the biggest gripe from us. But thank you all for listening. And we'll be back talking about AJ Preller's trades tomorrow.